Hey, what is up, everyone? It's Theguyhere, and welcome back to another episode of Themindhere, the bi-weekly podcast where I talk about new knowledge I've learned, projects I'm working on, and current events. Topics may be random, but I hope that with each episode you can come away with a fresh perspective on the universe. Welcome to all of you who are here for the first time. If you like my content and want to see more, please consider subscribing. I'm going to begin this episode by talking a bit about some thoughts I've had about just my progress in general and how I've been doing, as well as some ideas that I think I can move forward with to help improve myself. One of the things I've noticed, or at least I've felt, is that progress has been sort of stagnant throughout this time period that I've been locked up and inside my house by my own choice, but it still, I feel like it was something that might have hindered my progress in some ways. But again, this is a choice that I made. It's just been an overall notice that the past half year or so hasn't been that stellar compared to maybe my junior year of high school, or even before that. It seemed that I made a lot more progress, or at least it felt like I was going somewhere much more faster than I am right now. It just seems like everything's kind of stale, and this might be a result of the lockdown, or the result of just the dullness of staying in one place, in one location all the time. But I still feel that I haven't been going places. I haven't been at my highest, and that I could do a lot better. So I've begun to think, or I have been thinking about what could be some causes, what could be some things that could remedy this. And I'm sure that this is something that quite a few people struggle with. If you are stuck in one place, or if you have been socially distancing, there could be some disconnect from the reality that we know, and just an overall connection to other people to sort of ground ourselves and set some expectations for ourselves and have something to sort of compare to. It's really hard to compare to a vacuum or just the people inside your house. It's not much of a reference, and sometimes that sort of blindness can get you off track. So I've been looking at what sorts of mindsets have I set myself into, and what mindsets, maybe what ideas could bring myself out of this into a better condition. And I noticed that one thing that I tended to do was I like to stick to the person that I was from before. So we as humans have a tendency to want to behave in the way that we have been in the past, and sort of have this consistent identity with ourselves. And that can be a good thing when our past identity, our past behaviors, or something that we want to uphold. So that's a good momentum to have. But it can also be bad when we started to let our standards get low, and we feel like there's that resistance to sort of changing ourselves and changing our identity in that sense. So there's this sort of tendency for us to hold ourselves to our past selves, but I've really questioned that, if that's something that's necessary. Can we actually change our behavior in an instant like that? And I've come to the conclusion that yes, we can. It's definitely by no means an easy task, but we can change our behaviors in an instant. Maybe yesterday we were busy, or not busy, fake busy. Maybe we were just slouching on the couch watching whatever YouTube, or doing whatever tasks that weren't as productive, maybe procrastinating the entire day. But then the next day, we could sort of switch that around, realize that we need to get somewhere. We need to get up and actually be doing something. And in that instance, we can decide to take actions that are productive, that are going to bring us towards our goals. That's not something that just because we did something yesterday that wasn't productive doesn't mean that today we also need to hold that productivity baseline. That's not something that's it's not like a physical or any natural barrier. It's just something that is a mental thing that's hard to do, but it's something that we can overcome. But being able to realize that we do have a tendency to stick to our past selves, and knowing that we can change our behavior in an instant, I think is something that can help lower the barriers to action and sort of kickstart motivation to get us working. So that's something that I've been wrestling with. And if you've been listening or watching these podcast episodes, you probably understand that I've spoken quite openly about the struggles that I've had. So I'm still trying to figure things out, but these are just some ideas, some thoughts maybe to help anyone that might be in a similar situation. And in the event that I get past this and bring myself up, you can watch the journey and see how it all unfolds. That's something that I want to sort of demonstrate and show this transparency and the process to get to a place that might be better than where one was before. So hopefully this helps you out a little bit, and hopefully that inspires some thought in you guys. Now, if you've been following me for the past few years, first of all, thank you so much for supporting me throughout all this time. But also, you might have noticed that my channel has sort of calmed down or quieted down a little bit. Besides the regular podcast episodes, the other content that I usually create has been toned down. And part of it is because I've decided to move a little bit away from music for a bit, because I wanted to focus on other academic things or other activities, but also because that the projects that I have been taking on haven't really warranted much of a full video, because the project that I'm currently working on is a Minecraft plugin. This is just sort of a coding project, a big project that I'm working on to make a Minecraft mini game. And there hasn't really been much that I can really put out an entire video for, but I have on Instagram posted some updates. So if you're interested in any updates or little sneak peeks before any full releases, you can take a look at my Instagram. If you go up to the channel bar, you should be able to see my Instagram up there. But so with this Minecraft plugin, it's a mini game called Villager Defense, where you go through waves of monsters and you're trying to defend villagers. Basically, you try to slaughter the monsters and progress through the rounds, and they get more difficult, more types of monsters and different types of monsters. You get to buy things with an in-game shop, and there's also different mechanics like kits and all of that. So it's something that's pretty big. It's a pretty big endeavor since I'm undertaking this myself, but it was pretty fun, and I'm pretty close to finishing. But this is what I wanted to talk a little bit about. With this plugin, of course, you have to do a lot of testing, right? With any code or any project, you have to do quite a bit of testing to make sure that it works before you can say like, hey, this is the production version. You can take a look at this. So, of course, I do my own personal testing, where I just have one person, or like this, in this case, my account on a server, and sort of test out the mechanics. But the interesting thing is when I add more people in, going from just one person to two people, suddenly there are some bugs that I hadn't seen before pop up. And it's interesting to see how maybe when I do all the tests, I see that by myself, all of these mechanics work. But then when I add another person, just one more person into the server, things start breaking down, which is an interesting thing, because you would think that one person compared to two people, it's not too big of a difference. But there are quite a few things that with two people, you can't test with one person. So in this different situation, you uncover a lot of different bugs and mechanics and just overall things that you can improve on. Even this past weekend, I tested this with a whole bunch of people. So 3, 4, or 5 people on a server. And it turns out that even with 2 people, I wasn't able to discover some of these bugs. With more people, I was able to see some of the balancing that I needed to do with the different mechanics, but also just some bugs that were in there that I hadn't uncovered before. And it's tempting to think that, oh, maybe it's just because I didn't understand what was going on. Maybe if I knew more, I could do more rigorous testing of the different methods that I was working on, different classes, different components of the project. And maybe then, even if I added, even if I went straight from one person to like 50 people on a server, it would have still worked well. And that's something I do want to caution with, because it's tempting to think that testing the different components is going to result in a system that will function overall on a higher level as you expect it to. As I've mentioned before on the channel about systems thinking, the components, a system is not the sum of its components. It's much more than that. It takes into account the different interactions between the components. So when you test and verify each component, you might say that this component works as it should, but as a system, it might not. So it's important to do these full scale tests, and it's important to sort of ground yourself with reality, because the different tests that you devise to speed up the process, making sure that there aren't as many errors when you do the developing, that's from the empirical evidence that you collected from these larger scale tests, putting it into a real environment and seeing how it performs, right? So putting it in these different tests that you devised is important to sort of speed up the process and learn from your past lessons. But if you don't put it into the environment, then you really lose that connection with reality. So then when you actually do deploy it into the environment, whatever solution it may be, it might not even be a coding solution. It might be something more physical. It definitely will start to break down, because the models that you create are not reality. Models are not reality. They are sort of a simplification that will often leave out some things that might be important, but it's hard for us to keep track of everything. So models help speed things up, but they don't reflect reality. So that's something that I've learned through this process, and hopefully whatever project that you guys are working on, this will help you out as well. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening or watching. I appreciate the support you all have given me. If you found this episode or this podcast to be inspiring or just insightful in any way, it would mean a lot for me if you shared this with people that you thought or you think might benefit from this, or might think this is an interesting thing. It means a lot to me to help grow this community of people that engage in expansion of the mind and thinking about different things from different aspects and openly share things. So I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Stay humble, and I'll see you all in the next episode.